All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's a very unique time in city history. We are hiring a new city attorney, and I appreciate everyone's interest in coming out to attend our public forum this evening. We have 3 candidates, and they'll introduce themselves here in a minute, but just so we get the format going. They'll each have about 5 to 8 minutes, I would say, to run through and introduce themselves. And then we have a series of questions that we'll be asking. Do make note, out on the table in the back is a little comment form. It looks like this. We'd love to have your feedback and thoughts as you go. You can do one per candidate. You can make all your notes on one, and there's a basket out front to drop those in when you leave. We also have a website. If you're watching from home, you can take comments online there. That comment form will be available until February 4th. So and I'll repeat that because we'll probably have some folks coming in a little later as well. But without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and get going. And again, so we're going to start on the end closest to me, and then we'll rotate as we go through the questions. But first and foremost, you're going to each, as I said, take 5 or 8 minutes, and please introduce yourselves.
My name is Paul Brachvogel, and I'm a municipal lawyer from the state of Washington. And first, like to extend my appreciation for your hospitality today. It was great. The state's great, the place is great, and I'm happy to be here. For the past 22 years, I've been an attorney in the state of Washington, also licensed in Oregon. And the majority of that time I've been serving the interests of local governments and even the state. And it's been my privilege to do so. I find a lot of satisfaction in doing that and serving the public. I've started off in the prosecutor's office like a lot of us do, and moved to Tacoma to work for the city of Tacoma and their prosecutor's office. And was moved up and out to the Tacoma Public Utilities, where I had the good fortune of working with great people. A fellow named Mark Grisson, who ended up being the American Public Power Association president and CEO. And I took a brief hiatus from the practice of municipal law to make it rich in Silicon Valley because it's so easy, and everybody makes billions of dollars just by moving down there. But it didn't work, and the good news was I came back, got married, and rebooted my career with the city of Kelso, which is in southwest Washington. It served as their city attorney, and later as their city manager. And also during that time was asked to help out by other city attorneys in other jurisdictions to cover meetings as they were sort of retiring, and then ended up serving as their city attorneys as well, cities of Woodland and the city of Kalama. And in 2008, I had the privilege of moving over to the Public Utility District, which at that time had water and electricity. We have 48,000 meters, a load of 550 megawatts, peaking load of 750 or so. And we have 144,000 people in our county as customers. And for the past, going on 7 years, it's been my high honor to serve there in a lot of interesting ways. They've given me the opportunity to serve an expansive role as the director of administrative services, overseeing HR and a lot of the management functions in that regard. So it's been great. Some highlights of that time in the city of Kelso. We creatively financed a baseball stadium that wouldn't have been erected without some creativity. We managed to build City Hall with some creativity as well. The city is of Woodland. I've been involved in some environmental litigation as a plaintiff's lead lawyer, and we're successful in that. And the city of Kalama, we've defended excess coverage case that would have bankrupted the city. So real happy with some of the successes there. And with the Public Utility District, we have embarked on renewable energy and worked on the second phase of a wind farm. And so it's been very rewarding there. Worked through some difficult governance issues over the last couple years. But we're on the right track, and we're engaged in strategic planning now and facilitating our differences and so forth, and we're excited for the future. I'm originally from Tacoma, but and I'm a Seahawks fan, so unlike Marshawn Lynch, I'm not here because I'm afraid of getting fined. I'm here because it's a great opportunity. And so I look forward to hopefully a successful outcome. And I was lamenting in the hallway there that the city of Fort Collins has a really good problem. They've got great candidates, and it's a matter of fit, and we'll see what happens. But it's a privilege to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions when that time comes.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Carrie Daggett, and I'm currently serving as the interim city attorney for the city of Fort Collins. I was appointed to this role in July 2014 after the sudden and unexpected death of Steve Roy, who had been the city attorney since 1988. I began my career with the city in 1995 when I became an assistant city attorney here. After several promotions over the years, in 2007 I was made a deputy city attorney. And as a deputy, I had a lead role in the city attorney's office, serving in the place of the city attorney as needed, and more recently, managing the community facilities and services section of the office. Throughout the years, I've advised the city council and city management and staff at all levels, and in a wide array of city departments, on projects of every sort and size. My experience has given me a deep and broad knowledge of the city organization and how it works, as well as the people working in it. It has given me a strong awareness of the community and its active stakeholder groups, and an appreciation for the important role the community plays in the policy dialogue of the city. And it has deepened my respect for the priorities, strategies, and expectations of the City Council, and the commitment and service of City Council members and others in public service. My interest and respect for serving in government developed at an early age, perhaps because both of my parents dedicated themselves to this sort of work. Through them, I learned the value and importance of fairness, humility, hard work, and responsibility, and the psychic reward of contributing to the community. My father was a career Marine and was an elected county official in Iowa for nearly 30 years. And his enthusiasm for state and local government had a particularly formative influence on me. Our kitchen table debates regarding policy issues of the day continued well into my adult years, and I think helped me prepare me for a career in local government law. I started my career at the state of Iowa as a management and budget analyst with the state's regulatory agencies, governor's office, the state legislature, and others on budgeting and performance measurement. Next, I moved to the Iowa Department of Corrections, where I was on the core management team for state correctional institutions and community corrections. I represented the department with the state legislature, and I managed the administrative rulemaking process there. I moved east to attend Yale Law School, where I was the managing editor of the Yale Journal on Regulation, and where I studied with some of the top legal scholars in the world. Upon graduation, I was admitted to practice in Illinois and the District of Columbia, and I began my legal career as an associate in the DC law firm of Beveridge and Diamond. There I represented a variety of clients on matters related to an alphabet soup of environmental laws, including CERCLA, RCRA, FIFRA, EPCRA, NEPA, as well as the Clean Water Act and many others. In 1992, I relocated to Denver, where I practiced environmental law, land use and regulatory law, and local government law, representing public and private sector clients as an associate at the firm then known as Brownstein Hyatt, Farber and Strickland. When I decided it was time to return to the public sector, it was my great good fortune that the city of Fort Collins was looking for a new assistant city attorney. Now, after 20 years in this organization and in this community, it's been immensely rewarding to me to have played a role in so many meaningful and important projects and decisions. I've worked on the acquisition of thousands of acres of natural areas, including Soapstone Prairie and Bobcat Ridge, as well as countless other real properties. I've worked on the redevelopment of Foothills Mall and the Woodward World Headquarters, the negotiation of complex agreements for water service, stormwater and street projects, shared public facilities, major financing projects, as well as the city's response to floods, fires, and snowstorms. I've written code language to address smoking in public places, wasting water, pay-as-you-throw trash hauling, administrative fees, utility locates, recycling, purchasing procedures, drought response, outdoor vendors, green building codes, stormwater quality, historic preservation, utility loans, natural areas and parks permits, weed mowing, and wastewater discharges, and many, many more. Each morning I reach for the Coloradoan with anticipation and interest, knowing that something I've worked on or will help respond to is likely on the front page or close to it. I've learned firsthand the importance of working with partner organizations, both public and private, in order to advance shared objectives. Through my work, I've developed strong relationships with colleagues at Platte River Power Authority, the Fort Collins Housing Authority, Poudre Fire Authority, and the Downtown Development Authority, as well as state and local government entities such as Larimer County, Poudre School District, and Colorado State University, and many more, along with many neighboring cities and towns. My time here has allowed me to establish a valued network of colleagues and professional contacts in the legal community, and in particular in the local bar and with our municipal colleagues throughout the state. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had to work with City Attorney Steve Roy and for all of the education, guidance, insight, and understanding that he imparted to me. Steve had already established himself as a top municipal attorney when I came to the city, and from him I learned so much about the value of thoughtful and well-researched legal work, communicated clearly, and targeted to respond to client needs and the context of the work. He also was a good-humored stickler for proper metaphor use and left many of us well-trained to consider carefully our metaphors and spot those who do not. The city attorney's office is truly a team, and some might say a family, and I care deeply about the success of the office and my colleagues there. I'm enthusiastic about the opportunities we will have together to continue to serve the city organization and the community effectively and efficiently, and to explore and develop new and better ways to do it. We will move forward to establish a new, clear sense of mission, to learn and understand fully and systematically how what we do translates into great client service, and new technologies, systems, and tools, and new ways of deploying the team to make use of them will be a key to achieving new levels of success, as will establishing and providing thoughtful support, guidance, training, and growth opportunities within the office. I've enjoyed meeting the challenges that the city attorney faces nearly every day, and I'm excited about the chance to lead and manage the city attorney's office as we adjust and transform. It has truly been an honor and a privilege to have served in the role of interim city attorney during such an important and challenging time. Fort Collins is my home. It's the place I choose to live and work, and I'm continually inspired by the thoughtfulness, creativity, energy, and commitment of my colleagues and friends in this community, and by the way those traits are positively reflected in the city organization. I'm committed to continuing to make a positive impact on the city attorney's office, the city organization, and the community. And I'm grateful for the chance I have every day to make a difference in ways that matter, sometimes big and sometimes small. My thanks to each of you for participating in this event tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to be here as a finalist for the city attorney appointment. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shaun Sullivan. I'm the director of the Municipal Operations section of the Denver City Attorney's Office. And I'm pleased to be here tonight, and I'm pleased to have an opportunity to address the members of this community. I'm married. I have 2 children. My oldest recently graduated from Loyola University in Chicago. My youngest is a junior at Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. I'm originally from Eastern Washington, although we moved to Greeley, Colorado when I was in grade school. My dad got his PhD at the University of Northern Colorado and was dean of the community college, Ames Community College in Greeley for a long time. We moved to Trinidad, Colorado when I was in high school, and I graduated from Trinidad High School in Southern Colorado, and from there went on to Colorado College, where I got my bachelor's, and from there to Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., where I got my law degree. I worked my way through college and law school by working on a farm and a commercial fishing boat in southeast Alaska. I wasn't long in Washington, D.C., maybe about 6 months before I knew I was coming back to Colorado to practice law. There's no question about it. So in 1983, when I graduated, I came to Denver and went to work for a large firm in downtown Denver doing water rights and natural resources work for them. I practiced in private practice for 7 years, representing municipal water districts, water providers, farmers, ranchers, some irrigation companies. I've practiced in most of the river basins in Colorado. After 7 years in private practice, I had the opportunity to move to the city attorney's office in Denver and become their environmental attorney in 1990. So for 15 years, I was the primary environmental attorney for the city and county of Denver. In that time, I was responsible for helping with the development of policy and procedures that protected the city from risk and liability, that ensured that the city was in compliance with environmental regulations, and most importantly, we helped negotiate a number of settlements with the federal government with regard to a large Superfund site, the Lowry landfill, and then we brought cost recovery action to get the other parties who contributed to that issue to pay for it. I was involved in that capacity. I was also involved in a number of development projects that have been key in downtown Denver. The development of the Central Platte Valley was beginning as I was beginning work with the city. We helped negotiate and bring e-leaches downtown. They moved downtown to the South Platte River. They were the first business to locate in the Central Platte Valley. We also worked with the railroad holding company that held the land to get them to dedicate the roads and the parks that made it possible for the Central Platte Valley to develop. I was also involved from the beginning in the redevelopment of Lowry Air Force Base, which has been a very successful base closure and redevelopment in Denver. It's a joint project between the city and county of Denver and the city of Aurora, and we developed it with an intergovernmental agreement that allowed the two parties to set up a redevelopment authority that actually did the development there. After 15 years working on these issues, which were rewarding and interesting, I had an opportunity to work for then Mayor John Hickenlooper for a year as a fellow in the Office of Accountability and Reform, where we were focused on trying to find ways to make government more efficient in delivering services for the citizens of Denver. We looked at things like performance-based budgeting, which I know the city of Fort Collins does now. We also did performance reviews of using data and metrics to measure the effectiveness of various city operations and programs. After a year of that, I went back to the city attorney's office and was promoted to assistant director of the municipal operations section. The municipal operations section of our office is the general counsel to the city generally. It handles all the commercial work. So we do all the contracts for the city. We do the construction contracts for the city. We help with real estate acquisition. We do the land use planning and development, the environmental work, tax and bankruptcy work, and we defend any claims and litigation that arise out of those kinds of transactions. I've got a staff of 20 attorneys and 9 great support staff that help us handle those kinds of matters. It's been quite rewarding. One of the projects that I worked on was, as an assistant supervisor, was organizing the legal team that provided the advice to the city on a $550 million general obligation infrastructure project. And we were able to, the city as a team was able to complete that program in 4 years and came in $20 million under budget. So it was quite an accomplishment for the team that was working on that. 3 years ago, I was promoted to be director of the municipal operations section of the city attorney's office. Tonight, I'm here as a candidate for the city attorney of the city of Fort Collins. I'm pleased to have that opportunity. It's a next logical step for me in my career. it would be a pleasure to serve the city of Fort Collins, which has shown itself to be extremely innovative in creating a very vibrant and livable community and delivering services that improve the quality of life for the citizens of Fort Collins. I would be pleased to be part of that leadership team. Thank you.
Wow, thank all of you for that. Appreciate it. All right, we'll start with some prepared questions that we have. Carrie, we'll start with you. I need glasses now. Question is, what interests you about this position? And then, sort of covered this, but well, the second part was what experience, knowledge, and skills, et cetera, make you the best candidate. So we covered some of that, so maybe more focus on really what interests you in the position.
What I have found in my role as interim city attorney is that I really enjoy the opportunity to work on the full range of projects and issues that are going on at the city. Typically, we have assignment areas or at least groups, portions of what's going on at the city that we focus on in our work in the city attorney's office. And being at the sort of top of that system in the office and having the chance to have a role in the public safety aspects of what we do, in the planning, development, and transportation aspects of what we do, in the parks and recreation area, in all of the other areas, has been really interesting and rewarding for me. I've also really found that I'm in a position to make a much bigger impact on how the office is performing, how the office is providing services, and how we're attending to the needs of the organization and the needs of the council when I'm in that position of having a relationship to all that's going on. And so I would say that's what interests me, is the opportunity to continue to have that level of involvement and that level of influence over what's going on.
Thank you. Shaun?
What interests me about the position is the reputation that this community has for being a livable community, and I've certainly spent enough time here to know how livable it is, but also for being a community that is interested in delivering services, or being a city that's interested in delivering services in the most efficient and best way they can, balancing the quality of life. I'll be very honest with you, working in municipal government and local government is perhaps the most rewarding thing you could do, in my opinion. Particularly, it's been enjoyable in the city attorney's office to help, to be part of a team that helped Denver over the last 30 years to grow, to increase the number of people who are living downtown, to address some of the issues that they've had. Fort Collins is doing a great job in being forward-looking and looking at things like their transportation and looking at sustainability and looking at making sure they're making the best use of their citizens' dollars. And that's attractive, and I'd be happy to be a part of that team.
Thank you. Paul?
I'm not sure there's much left. I would say that for my part, I've always found it interesting to be working in an environment that shapes your immediate physical environment, that impacts the financial state of your own self, your own family, and your friends, and a local government has an opportunity to directly impact its citizens. So I've always thought that that was sort of a charge. I get a kick out of that. And I also think for Fort Collins' part, just by what I'm seeing, and the way your charter is set up and the way your citizens interact, you've got direct access to your citizens and vice versa, and it seems like you are in tune with what the citizens are doing, and that sort of is, to me, the exciting part about it is sort of schmaltzy, but I like local government because it has a direct impact, and I like to be part of it.
Excellent. All right. Shaun, we'll start with you. This is actually two questions. I won't even pretend like it's a two-part question. It's two. How would you integrate yourself into the role of city attorney for the city of Fort Collins? And what is your idea of success in the role of city attorney?
Was that ideal or idea of success?
Your choice.
One of the things I'd have to do if I were hired to be city attorney is to certainly learn and get myself acquainted with the staff of the city attorney's office and the leadership of the city of Fort Collins, including the elected officials in particular, and then the department heads and those kinds of things. I'll be honest with you, it was interesting in the interviews today hearing some of the issues that are being dealt with here, things like transportation, things like economic development, things like how do you finance infrastructure, things like how do you keep, in terms of economic development, how do you keep housing affordable? We're dealing with the same issues in Denver, and so the issues, the legal issues, are going to be similar, not the same. Success would be not a peaceful group, but at least a group that's discussing professionally and pleased at the end of the first year with the performance that's happened and the legal services that they're getting from me as a city attorney. And that the office has had an opportunity, the attorneys in the office have had an opportunity to feel like they're really part of the team of the city and are working hard to make it a better place.
Great, thank you. Paul, do you want me to repeat those?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So it's how would you integrate yourself into the role, and then what is your idea of success in the role of city attorney?
Well, I think, as Shaun said, that there'd have to be a point where you get introduced to your staff, know what their goals are, what the mission is presently, what the client's needs are, learn that from your staff and learn that from the department heads. Integrate your efforts into the strategic plan and make sure that you're all moving in the same direction. In terms of measurement of success, I take it from what I've read that Fort Collins places a premium on self-evaluation, continual improvement, and I would assume that would be the city attorney's office would be part of that, any measurement of that. If not, then we'd have to come up with some metrics to measure success. But if you can't measure it, you won't be assured of continuing improvement. So that's the way I would do it.
Carrie?
For me, I think integrating into the organization and the office would mainly be a matter of, number one, my taking an opportunity to make sure that I've become as familiar as I can be with the portions of the organization that I have not worked directly with. There aren't very many of those, but there are a few. And I think it would be helpful to me to feel like I have a very good sense of those aspects of the operation of the city and the service of the city attorney's office. I think I would also step back and take a look at how we do things and take a look at how the city attorney's office currently relates to the rest of the organization, and try to focus on looking at ways that we can establish systems for evaluating our success, ways that we can work with our clients in order to understand what they're looking for and what we can do to provide better service. And then also working with the attorneys in the office to anticipate and try to prepare for some of the personnel changes that we know are coming with retirements and with the opportunity to do some reconfiguring in the office, including if I were to be hired as city attorney, the filling of a deputy position or some form of a position that would be opened up. So there would be a lot of opportunity to take a look at the office, take a look at the structure, and how we're utilizing the personnel of the office, and work on trying to optimize that, and then develop some systems for continuing to review how we're doing what we do, and how we can do it better.
Just your idea of success, was that included in there?
I guess I didn't directly address that. I would say, for me, success would be creating a system to do those things I just described that would not be personality dependent, that would be an operating structure that would continue, that wouldn't depend on any individual in the office, but would be kind of self-effectuating and would create a long-term, ongoing way for the office to continue to succeed.
Okay, thanks. I think we are starting with you, Paul. This question is, what do you see as the major opportunities or challenges facing Colorado municipalities and Fort Collins in particular?
Well, regulatory matters are important. It's to pay attention to. You have the interest in the Platte River Electric Authority. That is fraught with regulatory matters. You've got the Clean Water Act, and that requires attention. So all of those. You are in a good position, an enviable position, of having stable financials and a vital economy here. So whereas some cities that may have struggled through the economic downturn, delivering services with zero money, it appears that you're in a very good position. That's probably attributed to great planning and good management and so forth. But those are challenges that you'll always have, because the expectation, I think, of the public in any setting is that they want more bang for the buck. They will always demand, and rightfully so, your best effort in getting that and delivering that. And so in general terms, it's the deliverables for the lowest cost.
Do you want me to repeat? Let me know if you want me to repeat. I'm happy to.
Okay. I think there are three main things that come to mind for me that seem like inevitable challenges for the city to be facing in the coming years. One is the challenge of funding infrastructure, and the fact that in addition to being an expensive proposition and one that's continually looming, I think that there are always financial constraints on entities like the city, and there are real challenges associated with trying to establish an ongoing, adequate source of funding to maintain and replace infrastructure and to build infrastructure that's needed because of increased demand. The second thing that I think is another kind of inevitable challenge for the city is kind of a collection of external influences that I think not just cities, but all kinds of entities and communities throughout the country, the state, will be facing. Things like climate change, the challenge of managing greenhouse and reducing greenhouse gases, energy-related challenges and environmental challenges that will continue to emerge. And I think that those kinds of issues really are ongoing opportunities for the city to look at the way it approaches, the way it does things. But they are definitely challenges, and some of them are very difficult, I think, to address. The third item that comes to mind for me is just the challenge of reaching the state of having built out as a city, or reaching more of a kind of a steady state in terms of the city's size or perhaps population, although probably not. And I think the evolution that the organization and that the community will go through as it reaches that point and then moves beyond it will pose a number of challenges that I think will be very different from a lot of the things that the city has faced in the past.
I think some of the opportunities, it looks like Fort Collins is booming right now, and the growth of the economy. You've attracted, I know, some world-class businesses. that's an opportunity. It's also, the flip side of that is the challenge it presents in preserving the quality of life you have here in Fort Collins. And how do you balance, how do you encourage the growth and maintain the quality of life and things like affordable housing, the environment, transportation, how do you address those issues as you grow? So I think, and then the need to continue to invest in the city is going to be something that's going to be important to address those challenges and to afford you those opportunities for growth. Having lived through the middle 80s here and seen what happened with oil, I'm a little bit concerned about what might happen again. So that could be an economic challenge down the road as well.
All right. So without divulging your city attorney secrets, this is always tricky because they have to be careful in answering, and we have to be careful what we ask them. But if you could just describe an experience where you had to deliver an unpopular legal opinion, and how did you work through that? And I think, Carrie, we are back to you starting.
I am working on thinking of something that I'm comfortable describing in any meaningful level of detail.
Okay.
I have had experiences, particularly in private practice, where my client, working on a project, has been involved in looking for ways to reduce costs on the project and reduce regulatory requirements associated with the project. And those kinds of concerns in a project can sometimes be short-term gains that can lead later to greater expense, sort of the you can pay me now or you can pay me later kind of problem. And so I have had times when, in that context, I have had clients who were very unhappy and very resistant to the legal advice that they take a relatively conservative approach related to environmental compliance. And in that context, it's often the case that the consequences are great enough that a full discussion of the options and of the risks and consequences associated with those options generally leads the client to feel like the best choice is probably the compliance route or the route that's being recommended. That's not always the case, but that's often really helpful in making sure that a client is fully understanding the advice that is being given and is able to really make an informed decision.
Thank you. Shaun?
In one of the bond projects that we worked on, we divided the ballot issues up so that they were identified with specific types of infrastructure, parks or transportation or health. And we acquired some property that was to be used for a recreation center, and it was with parks. There was another piece of ground that was adjacent that people wanted to acquire for affordable housing, and I had to give them the word that the bond money for parks really couldn't be used for that. And we just talked about what the constraints were of the ballot language and why that couldn't be done. Property could be acquired, it just couldn't be acquired with those funds.
Thank you. Paul?
Well, I think I'll speak in generalities. Most of the absolute no's that I would lay down really never saw the light of day, thankfully. But there have been other matters where there was action taken contrary to advice. But as Carrie pointed out, the client would do that with their eyes wide open and fully informed. And we had a payment issue in last, well, that's 3 years ago, would have basically amounted to a bonus, which is contrary essentially to Washington State Constitution. And well, there was some loud discussions about that. But again, our role as lawyers oftentimes is to stop it at that point and say, the risk is yours now. If you are fully informed, that is going to be your decision. And it is not our role to supplant our business judgment for theirs.
Thank you. You've all described a deep passion for working for the public sector and municipalities, and I embrace that as well. How do you separate your personal opinion with the legal opinion when it's something that's impacting the community in which you live? I think we're with you, Shaun.
We get to practice that every day. There's certain areas that we as lawyers get to give advice in, and I believe as a lawyer in giving comprehensive advice that talks not just about the legal ramifications of a particular type of thing, but also to point out whatever pitfalls there might be from a policy standpoint or from a political standpoint, if you will. But those issues, I make very clear to the client that those are their decisions. But on the legal side, that advice is something they need to consider more carefully, and what the risks are associated with not following that advice. It's been pretty easy for me, for whatever reason, to separate my personal opinion about the policy that's adopted from the decisions that are being made, as opposed to my legal opinion about what needs to be done. I have not particularly had that difficulty.
Thank you. Paul?
Neither found it to be too difficult. And I've had the luxury of having some pretty sophisticated constituencies that are receiving my counsel. So they understand the role of the city attorney, and so I haven't found it to be too difficult. There is a need, though, from a city attorney's office standpoint, to give fully vetted opinions. If there's some question about it, I would say that there should be a system involved within the attorney's office to formulate legal opinions, that they're fully vetted, and that, as I said in an interview panel, that you're correct, that you are really sure about the best answer, and that can only come from tapping into your resources in your office.
I can say that I have not found it a huge challenge to make that separation. I think it's really important, and going back to Steve Roy's training, I think it's one of the things that Steve Roy emphasized in his training of me and other attorneys in the office as we developed and learned how to do the jobs that we've been doing, is that our role is a relatively defined role, and it's important for us to be conscious of that. And in respect to the roles of the others in the process, the respect of the city manager and the management staff and departments who are involved in city projects and decision-making, the council, and others who actually have a role to play in making those decisions, I think it's extremely important for us to be very conscious of our role as an advisor and a supporter of the decisions that are made and the programs that are going forward. So, that training takes maybe a little while for some. I think it's not too hard to establish that mindset when you're surrounded by people who share it.
Thank you. Ton of experience up there between all of you. And so you're probably used to being challenged at some level, but how do you handle it when your opinion is challenged, and particularly maybe publicly here? Where are we? Now I've forgotten. It was like my one job.
Very carefully is the answer. Diplomatically, with some grace, and if the attorney is comfortable knowing that the opinion or position they are advising on is fully vetted, there's not much more that you can do other than, as Carrie said, once the decision is made, embrace it, move on, and support your client in its decision. I'm not sure what else you could do other than to be very diplomatic about it. And frankly, this is an academic exercise, and these are hypotheticals, but in healthy organizations, it's been my experience that with good council members and a good legal staff, that doesn't happen as much as it may, your hypothetical may imply. It's been my experience that with very fully vetted attorneys' opinions, people calculate the risk accordingly. They're accurate in their assessment. They discuss it in a real mature way, and decisions are usually made the right way. Thankfully, and government actually does work that way, and you know, we should be proud of ourselves sometimes that we actually do get to the right decision, and it's a process sometimes.
I second Paul's comments. I think his observations are consistent with what I've seen. I would say in my experience, though, one thing that raises a flag for me is that if there is a decision maker who appears to be confused or may not be understanding the advice that's been given, I think that's a signal to me that I need to pay special attention and make sure that what's been explained, what's been advised, has been clearly enough stated and is understood so that there's not a miscommunication that's leading to the situation that you've described.
And I'd agree. I'd echo the comments of the other two. If the opinion's been fully vetted and thought through, you stand by it and you do it as respectfully as you can. And in terms of the law, I mean that happens to be our job. So, but if it's not, if you're asked an opinion in a session and you give an answer and somebody challenges it and you're not quite sure, then that's probably the time to say, let's take a closer look at that and see where we go from there. But a fully vetted legal opinion should hopefully is well enough done that there should be some confidence in that.
Excellent. I'm going to look out here if there are folks that would like to pose a question. We'll do one or two of those as we go. And then I also want to remind folks of the cards that we have. Obviously, this is a city council decision. Our city attorney is an employee of the council, so we're not asking you who we should hire. We're asking you strengths, concerns, or considerations on these cards. And again, they're up front if you haven't gotten them, and there's a basket for those. Does anyone have a question? Yeah. And we'll need the microphone, so you can either walk forward and help me, or I'll come out here and meet you.
As I did not have any advantage of hearing your interviews earlier this afternoon, I'm looking for some personality traits here from each of you. And, you know, as city attorney, you have to spend many, many hours on tough issues with a lot of input from a variety of sides. How do you interject levity into your job? And can you give an example of something that you've done to sort of lighten up the air there?
Thank you.
You know, the beer ads with the most interesting person in the world? That's me. I think it's important, as you mentioned, that we spend a lot of time together. We spend the majority of our lives, if we end up working in the same spot forever, at work. And it's critical to have decent relationships, and levity is a part of it, but being serious is also part of it. I think just sort of kindergarten rules, read the other person, read your social cues, understand if there are other lawyers in the room. I understand what they are about. I happen to appreciate lawyers. They work hard, they gobble up information, they spit it out. I like that. I like the subject matter experts that I have had the pleasure of working with, and approaching it in a real mature manner and with being goal-oriented, I think takes conflict out of it, where conflict may creep in if we're all on the same page. Those sort of things, just moving forward in the same direction, I think is imperative. And if you get sidetracked, remind yourself what the mission is.
I have no particularly significant examples to give of ways in which I bring levity to my work life or to those around me in my professional settings. But I do think that having a positive, cheerful demeanor, working with people in a way that leaves them open to feeling like it's okay and, in fact, is welcome to have levity in the workplace and to enjoy working with each other is pretty much the way things are most of the time in my experience in the city organization, recognizing that there are times when we have pretty serious problems that we're trying to work through. And in those cases, we usually try to save the jokes for later.
I think to the extent you can defuse a situation with a simple remark or a joke in an appropriate situation or even in a meeting, it's all right to do that. I couldn't give you a specific off-the-cuff answer about what was funny. It wouldn't be funny to you because you wouldn't have been in the circumstances, for one thing. So, but I think it's important to be able to laugh at yourself a little bit, and I'm certainly willing to do that. So,
Well done. Mel?
Yeah, I could probably speak loud enough.
But not for the camera, because I think we're doing that.
This high-tech stuff, this media stuff. I got here a little bit late, and Shaun, you said how many attorneys you had in your department, 20, I think. Would the other two say how many you have supervised in one capacity or another?
I'll go first and respond that in the city's attorney's office right now, there are 10 attorneys who I supervise, 2 paralegals, and 3 support staff. There is actually another position because my deputy position is currently vacant. That would typically be one more than that.
When I came up, I was supervising 5 trial lawyers, and then in my present capacity am supervising 4 to 6 people, depending on which week it is. But they are not lawyers in-house, but the mainstay rate counsel we have had, I manage him, and 3 or 4 other lawyers at any given time. We're not particularly married to a firm. We hire the best lawyer for the situation. And so I really work hard at managing budgets for outside counsel, trying to drill down as much as we can unanticipated costs, but that's the nature of them. They are unanticipated. And unlike other professions where you can agree there's a budget, there's usually not another party trying to undo what you're trying to do. And sometimes in adverse situations, budgets get out of control, but it's more art than science, I suppose.
And Shaun, was that a current number, or was that a past department? What do you?
that's a current number.
Okay.
We're about to expand it, but that's the current number.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else? Not a legal question, right?
I have a question that pertains to what you would do in a circumstance where, if you're employed by the city of Fort Collins as a city attorney, you encounter a situation where a legal opinion that had been delivered by your predecessors did not comport and indeed conflicted with Colorado state law, as you surely will if you take this job, and what your attitude would be about resolving that conflict with the law.
Not sure our attorney's up here. Do we have another attorney? Are we going to take that one? or answer in a more general term?
I'm going to have to answer in a more general term. Without knowing the facts of the particular opinion, the particular issue, I really couldn't say. I know that the city of Fort Collins has I know the past city attorney was pretty well respected. I know he's respected statewide. I'm sure that if they've got a formal opinion, it's probably pretty well vetted.
Okay.
I guess there's a number of ways of handling it. You can ask for outside counsel to take a look at it. Maybe if it implicates some major state issue, perhaps get a legal opinion from the Attorney General's office, that kind of thing. But I wouldn't shy away from delving into it if the matter was still on the decks and needed to be resolved. The city attorney, as they stand now, is the city attorney with its own separate and distinct obligations to its client, and would have to go through a process of feeling comfortable with the legal decisions he or she makes, regardless of what was done in the past. I was telling one of our board state interview panels that a number of cities, one of which is in Washington State, has a number of attorneys on the council itself and never agrees with the city attorney. In fact, the city attorney left as a result, but would come up with differing opinions on the spot. Here's a differing opinion. Hopefully, there could be some leadership in the city attorney's office to reduce the risk of those kinds of things and treat with respect previous decisions and be diplomatic about it, try to resolve it and giving the client good advice so they're all moving in the same direction, comfortably as possible.
I agree fully with what Paul has said about that. I do think that there is a preliminary question to be asked in thinking about this kind of question, which is an opinion being revisited as a theoretical matter, or is there a reason that something is happening that calls for a review? Is there something that potentially would need to be modified in response to a revisiting of an opinion? I think in those kinds of situations, the city attorney has an obligation to advise the city to the best of his or her abilities. And if there are issues that need to be revisited, they should be revisited, but not just for the sake of doing that, because there's a reason to be looking at a question and a reason to be reopening an issue.
All right. Why don't we take, we had questions for you. If there was something you wanted to share and didn't get a chance to share, each of you take like 1 minute. After that 1 minute, there are some food and snacks in the lobby, so we hope but stick around for their closing comments, don't go yet. And again, we just really appreciate you all showing up this evening. If there's anything, I want to give you the opportunity.
At the risk of sounding very interesting, I will sound very dull. I'm just a municipal guy. I've been doing it for a long time. I'd be thrilled to be given the opportunity to work here. We've got a great staff and a great city. I'm very boring. I have very little hobbies other than going to volleyball and coaching basketball, practicing law at night with my other client, the city of Kalama. But the good part about this is Fort Collins has some great candidates here. I really do believe that, so you're in good shape.
I just want to reiterate how honored I have been to be interim city attorney and how much I've enjoyed the opportunity to serve in that role. I'm also looking forward to the opportunity to meet the two people who are up here with me, who I have not really had a chance to talk to at all, and I'm very interested in learning more about. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity. Thank you.
Just want to commend this community on having this many people come and listen to three lawyers talk. But I appreciate the opportunity to be up here, and the interview process has been interesting. I've learned a lot about the city of Fort Collins and the important things, the things that are important to the staff here about the person that's going to serve as city attorney. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the questions from the community, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Great, thank you so much. How about a little applause for these guys? Thanks for joining us. Again, if you're watching elsewhere or want to make comments later, you can do that online on the city website, fcgov.com. The actual full address is on the card, or just search city attorney. Thanks.